Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into why our world feels so divided and, honestly, so draining. We're going to look at the patterns in our own minds, in our society, and in our technology that create this constant feeling of stress and overload.
So let's start right there with that feeling. You know the one. That mental exhaustion that comes from being surrounded by constant conflict. If you feel that way, you are not imagining it. It turns out there are some really clear, understandable patterns that explain why this is happening, and we're going to unpack them together.
So, first up, why does all this conflict feel so physically draining? I mean, it's not like we're running from a lion, right? Well, to get a handle on this, the work of neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky is the perfect place to start. He gives us this brilliant comparison that really frames the problem. Okay, so check this out. This comes from Sapolsky's book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. For a zebra, stress is simple. A lion attacks, it runs, and then, win or lose, the stress is over. It's a short, intense burst. But here's the thing about us humans. We are smart enough to turn on that exact same life-or-death stress response for purely psychological stuff, like worrying about a mortgage or getting into an argument on social media. And the really crucial part? We never figured out how to turn it off.
All right, so that explains the physical exhaustion. Our stress switch is stuck in the on position. But why do these conflicts grip us so tightly in the first place? For that piece of the puzzle, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt has a fascinating explanation, and it all starts with how our minds are wired for morality.
Haidt often points to this quote from Benjamin Franklin because it perfectly sets up his big idea. We like to think of ourselves as these super rational beings, making logical decisions. But Haidt argues that when it comes to what we believe is right or wrong, something else is usually pulling the strings. And that something else leads to this concept, post hoc rationalization. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. Think of it this way. First, you get an instant gut feeling about something, an intuition. It's only after that feeling that your conscious, logical brain wakes up. And its job isn't to be a scientist, carefully searching for the truth. Nope. Its job is to be a lawyer, hired to find the best possible arguments for the feeling you already have.
And this is where Haidt's metaphor of the rider and the elephant comes in, and it's just brilliant. Our conscious reasoning, our logic, that's the small rider on top. The rider can make plans and it can see the path ahead. But it's sitting on a giant, powerful elephant, our intuition, our gut feelings, our emotions. And 99% of the time, that elephant is going to go wherever it wants to go. This is a huge deal, because it explains why just throwing facts at someone rarely changes their mind. You're talking to their rider, but their elephant is the one in charge.
So what steers the elephant? Well, Haidt's research uncovered what he calls the 6 moral foundations. You can think of them like 6 different taste buds of the moral mind. And what's fascinating is that different groups rely on different taste buds. As you can see here, people who are politically liberal tend to build their moral world primarily on the first 3, care, fairness, and liberty. Conservatives, on the other hand, tend to use all 6 foundations more or less equally. Now, this isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about seeing that we're often operating in completely different moral universes. No wonder it feels like we're speaking different languages.
And this all leads to Haidt's powerful 2-part conclusion. Morality binds us together. It's the glue that creates teams, communities, and nations. It feels good to be part of a moral tribe. But at the exact same time, it blinds us. It makes it incredibly difficult, sometimes even impossible, to understand the perspective of other groups. Once our team decides something is sacred, we kind of lose the ability to think critically about it.
Okay, so we have this ancient tribal psychology hardwired into us. Now, let's add a modern accelerant to the mix, technology. If our brains are the kindling for division, then our digital world is like pouring gasoline on the fire.
And researchers have given us a couple of key terms to understand what's happening to us online. First, there's the filter bubble. That's your own unique, personalized information universe that algorithms build for you without you even realizing it. And then there's the echo chamber. That's what happens when you're in that bubble with a bunch of other like-minded people, and your shared beliefs just get repeated and amplified over and over, while different views just fade away.
And this all creates a really powerful feedback loop. It starts when you see a piece of content that triggers a gut reaction. It speaks to your elephant. You click, you like, you share. The algorithm sees that. It learns what gets a rise out of you. So it starts showing you more of that stuff and less of the stuff you ignore. Over time, your worldview gets reinforced again and again, until other points of view start to look not just wrong, but completely alien and incomprehensible.
So we've looked at our minds and our technology. Let's zoom back in now, all the way into our own bodies.
what is the actual physical price we pay for living in this state of nonstop psychological stress and social conflict? Well, the work of both Robert Sapolsky and the physician Gabor Mate shows us that this stress isn't just in our heads. It causes real, measurable physical harm. We're talking about a disrupted immune system making us sick more often. It can impair our memory and our ability to learn. It raises the risk of heart disease, causes stomach problems, and can even literally make us age faster. The conflicts we fight online and in society leave actual scars on our bodies.
And Gabor Mate really zeroes in on the stress that comes from not being our authentic selves, from repressing our true feelings just to fit in with the group. When we learn that it isn't safe to express what we really feel, all that pressure gets bottled up inside. And his point is that, eventually, if we can't find a way to consciously say no to things that are hurting us, our bodies might just end up saying it for us in the form of chronic illness.
So this all sounds pretty intense. But understanding these patterns in our biology, our psychology, and our technology, that is a huge first step. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? How can we stay informed and engaged without getting totally burned out or swept away by the current of outrage?
Well, based on the thinkers we've talked about, here are a few ideas. First, talk to the elephant. Just acknowledge that intuition is a huge driver for you and for everyone else. Second, taste a new flavor. Get curious about the moral foundations of people you disagree with. Try to see the world through their values. Third, audit your feed. You have to actively fight the algorithm and seek out different points of view. Fourth, listen to your body. Recognize those signs of chronic stress and make your well-being a priority. And finally, embrace what Gabor Mate calls negative thinking, which isn't about being pessimistic, it's about having the courage to honestly ask, what in my life isn't working, instead of just forcing positivity.
And that really brings us to the final big question. We are wired to be moral, social creatures. That wiring is what builds our communities, but it also fuels our greatest conflicts. It binds us, and it blinds us. The challenge for all of us, then, is to use this knowledge of our shared psychology not as another weapon in our tribal fights, but maybe as a tool for understanding, a way to perhaps finally learn to see.